Hello everyone, welcome to Jennifer's Sewing and Creativity. If it's your first time joining my channel, welcome. If you are joining from a previous video or you are a previous subscriber, welcome back. Today's video I am going to talk about prepping your fabric and your stabilizer in order to put it in your in your embroidery frame. And this is what your embroidery frame looks like. This is a 4x4 frame, and this is the frame that comes with the Brother SE 625 sewing machine. And this is the ruler that comes with it. And we're not going to use this yet. When we get to this, I will talk to you a little bit more about this. But that is what that looks like. And it actually has a protective, well, darn it. It's got a protective piece of plastic over it, and I guess that's just so it doesn't get all scratched up in the shipping. But I'm going to just leave it on there. It's not hurting nothing. But we are prepping the fabric, and then we are going to also cut some of the tearaway stabilizer. And I talked about stabilizers in a previous video, and I'm hoping by the time I get this video up that the stabilizer video will also be up. But I have a silicone mat. I think you can kind of see that down on my table. I talk also about the silicone mat in one of my mandala dot painting video hauls in the supply haul. And it's also really good for keeping on my table when I am using my wool pressing mat. And it just kind of helps the surface of my table. And I've got my wool pressing mat here. I purchased this wool pressing mat on Amazon, and I'm not sure what size this mat is. 13.5 by 17. So it's a nice size mat. I never really thought that wool pressing mats were, I thought they were kind of like a gimmick. But once I got one and I started using it to press my seams, I noticed a huge difference. And I am using a small little iron, and I'm just kind of ironing this little, I just have a scrap piece of fabric here. And one thing that I learned about if you're going to be using an embroidery sewing machine, and if you're going to be using the embroidered items in quilting, is you want to wash all your fabric before using it. And basically in all of your embroidery, you want to wash all your fabric first. And that just helps if it's going to be something that is going to be an item that's going to be worn. If it's going to be an embroidery item that's going to be worn, you want to always pre-wash your fabric. But as a quilter, I always pre-wash my fabric anyway, and then I starch my fabric. So I wash everything, and then I dry it till it's completely dry on a high heat, and then I starch it. I use a liquid starch and press it, and I also keep this nice little handy little hand handheld iron. It's really good to have everything right at my table. I used to use a regular ironing board at my table. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And this little guy gets pretty hot, so be really careful. And I'm going to stand up and unplug it right away. Okay. And what I like to do, since I have this silicone mat on my table, I am able to move my wool pressing mat off my table, and I have a nice little, this is a Fisker's cutting mat, and it is a 17 by 24 inch cutting mat, and I like it because it's really easy to keep at my table. And let me get I also have a Fisker's rotary cutter, and I'm gonna grab give me just a moment, I'm gonna grab a cutting ruler. Okay, so I just grabbed a 9.5 inch quilting ruler, and I know you're going to be able to see those ring lights in the I'm sorry about that, but I think we're just gonna have to deal with that. So I'm gonna just kind of fold this together, and we're just going to see how many 9-inch pieces I can get out of this. I'm not worried about it being perfectly cut. So if you've never used a quilting ruler before, they're typically in like 9.5, 12.5, 6.5, 4.5. I have a 2.5. And they do come in a few other sizes, but the half inches is because your seams are always 1/4 inches. So you're going to cut your squares or your pieces in half. So like 4.5 inches. Also, you know, like whatever your quilt size, whatever your block size is going to be. But I'm just going to cut these. I'm going to just cut them into 8-inch squares on here because it recommends for a 4 by 4 inch embroidery frame that you use an 8-inch square of fabric. So I'm going to just cut these pieces into 8-inch pieces. So I'm just going to kind of roughly line it up. And they're not going to be perfect, but that's okay. This is just kind of some scrap fabric that okay. So now I'm going to have, I guess I can kind of square it up and we'll kind of make it look a little better. Well, let's do it this way. It's been a while since I've quilted, so okay. So this is called squaring up my block. So I'm going to put on my 8-inch line, and my 8-inch line. And I'm just preparing the fabric for the frame. And that's not completely perfect, but that's okay. Okay, so that would be 2 8-inch squares. So there's 1 and 2. And let's go ahead and square this one up while we're at it. And this one's really bad. That one's awful. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of, yeah, this one's really bad. Okay. Whoa, my blade is loose. I should have, wow, what is wrong with my cutter? I haven't used my cutter for quite a while. If you haven't used it for a while, definitely check it. I didn't even think to check it since I haven't quilted in over a year, I think. Yeah, it's been at least a year. So you definitely want to check your blade to make sure that everything's nice and tight. It could have been really bad. I could have hurt myself pretty bad. Okay. And just throw these pieces all away. So I have 4 pieces of 8x8 fabric, and this one is a 9x9. It was just an extra piece that I had left over. I'm going to just leave it at the 9x9. So we're going to set those pieces aside, and I'm going to grab my tearaway stabilizer, and I'm going to cut a few pieces of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my other quilting ruler that I have, and I'll show you what that one is. I have a little tassel thing here on it, so when I hang it up, it has something to hang on. So this quilting ruler is a 6.5. Actually, it's just a 6-inch by a 24-inch. And anymore, this is about the one of the main rulers that I use anymore. And I am going to just kind of do some rough cuts here. You want to make sure that your stabilizer is going to match the size of your block or the piece of fabric that you're going to be putting into your frame. So like I said, the 4x4 inch frame recommends that you do the 8-inch square. So I want to cut the stabilizer also into 8-inch squares. So I'm just going to kind of do 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of put it to the edge here, and that way, and then I'm going to just count over 8 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So on this line, and I'm just going to line my ruler up to that, And normally I would have these pre-cut already. And I'm going to do this so I cut more than one at a time. And I'm going to fold the fabric over, or the stabilizer over. And without wasting too much of it, I'm going to try to get it as close as I can on there. I hope you can see that okay. So I just counted 8 inches over. I'm not really quite in frame, and I'm sorry about that. So make sure that we're 8 at the top as well. And I'm just going to lay my ruler down. And I actually have more than enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have more than enough. I don't want to waste a lot of the stabilizer if I don't have to. I kind of want to save as much as possible. And if you're using I'll save that one for another video. I'm not gonna tell you about that little hint yet. Okay, so I'm gonna just, and that cuts really nice and easily. So I'm gonna put this one aside. And so next time I cut it, I will have a nice straight cut on that one. So that'll be pretty easy. And so when I bought it, it wasn't cut very straight. And most of the times it's like that when you do buy it. Set that one aside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these into, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and fold it again. No, I'm not. I'm making it harder than what it needs to be because I'm doing it in a space that's much smaller than what I normally would. I normally have my machine off to the side and I cut everything first that I will be using, and then I bring everything in that I'll be using. I like to cut all my fabric and everything first. Okay, so this little piece I can save because I'll be able to splice these together, or I can even baste them together and not waste it later. If you're worried about wasting stabilizer, I'm really picky, so that's probably something that I would do later. Okay, so I'm going to just open these back up, and we're just going to do the 8-inch cut. And I'm really sorry if you can hear my neighbor's dog. It's kind of an ongoing issue. Okay. You can buy pre-cut pieces. There are some thread kits that you can buy that have your pre-cut stabilizer with your fabric, or sorry, The stabilizer's pre-cut into 8-inch pieces, and it comes with the thread kit that I bought. I'm not sure by the time this video is posted if I will have the thread kit that I purchased, if that video will be up yet. Maybe I'll have that posted just to kind of like break up the all the kind of monotony of the constant tutorial of the sewing machine. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so now I have my fabric and my stabilizer prepped. So we have, I'm going to just go with the 4 pieces. I have a few more than that already prepped. So there are 4 pieces that are prepped. And you're just going to lay your fabric over the top of your stabilizer, and that is how you prep your fabric and your stabilizer to go into a 4-inch frame. So in the next video, I am going to go over the next step with you. I am just going to go through the embroidery preparation of what it shows you in the manual. In the previous video was the presser foot attachment. I showed you this one was the fabric prep, and I will, when we get to the fabric in the frame, I will then show you how you attach the actual unit to the machine and a few other little things before we actually get right down to it. So in the next video, we'll be doing that. So we will see you soon. Bye-bye.